Okay, yeah. Go.
You should tell me, like...
You can cut it. It's fine.
Just cut it out.
No, okay. Ready?
Which is your... What? Let him which is your first.
What do you do? What is up, guys? This is back with the MoeShow. Today, we are talking about the government shutdown that is going on. I have two special guests with me. Will y'all please introduce yourselves?
I'm Andrew Maglich. As far as politics goes, I'm the president of Glenn High School's Texas High School Democrats, as well as the Austin Regional Director on the executive board of the Texas High School Democrats.
Okay.
And I'm Matthew. I lean conservative, and I have been studying politics and getting myself involved with the government by going to Texas State and performing in the Texas legislature.
FYI, see, these two people, I just went out and got them. I didn't even plan this. That's how amazing I am. Wow. See, two very great opinionated students. But you can tell today's topic is going to be about the government shutdown. Basically what a rundown is. The government shutdown is basically like, I forgot.
That's what it is?
Yeah. The government shutdown is basically disagreement on border security. So we're just gonna start off, jump into the first question. What is your opinion on the government shutdown right now?
So the government shutdown overall is, to put it lightly, a messy situation. Putting aside my own feelings on border security, the wall, and the immigration debate right now, the government shutdown, especially lasting as long as it has been a real drain on the 800,000 workers that are furloughed, so they're being forced to work without pay. They've been doing so since about right before Christmas, and it's been a little over 2 weeks now. And so that means that 800,000 people who largely rely on, paycheck to paycheck living, just getting by, they're without paychecks for weeks now and weeks to come. And I think that most people would agree that it's not right for people to be laid off of their jobs over a political dispute, that any kind of political dispute should be solved in an open and functioning government rather than a shutdown one. Right now the government is still shut down due to the lack of a veto-proof majority in favor of reopening the government without that border wall funding. So most Republicans in the House and Senate are in favor of funding a border wall, a $5 billion border wall along the southern border. But no Democrats in the House and the Senate are in favor of doing such, and there are some Republicans in the Senate that are also not in favor of doing that as well, but not enough to have a veto-proof majority. So even though the Democrats have passed a spending bill without that $5 billion in funding to reopen the government since they've taken power, the Democrats in the Senate don't have enough Republicans on their side to be able to do so without a veto from the president. I think that overall the wall is more of an ineffective way of combating issues surrounding illegal immigration and border security. Most of our crossings involving drug trade and international crime happen through our ports of entry, usually through things smuggled in through vehicles and on people and in people's bodies at some times. And so a lot of that has to do with the need for improvement in our technology. Most legal crossings are not along areas of the border that are currently not secured. But regardless of my own feelings, I think the shutdown itself is pretty bad, considering that not only we are suffering from a lack of our government services that we need to get by, like our TSA agents at airports, or national park rangers to be able to protect us while we're visiting those parks, but the workers themselves being severely hurt.
Wow, okay, so what is your opinion on the government shutdown at the moment?
I agree very well on it. It can be very hurtful to a lot of families, especially those relying on government. Especially since I actually saw an article about how the Food Protection Services, what is it called?
FDA, yeah. Food
Yeah.
and Drug Administration.
So like they're having hard issues trying to administer food, especially foreign food. So I know how that is. It's very scary, honestly. You don't even know what you're eating now because it could be dangerous. But all in all, I do understand where President Trump is coming from because he is obviously the lead motive in border security, because one of the main reasons he got voted for president is because there were a lot of people who backed up border security and the building of the wall. And so the reason why he's gone to such an extent is because that's his main thing he promised us as a nation, and he's trying to fulfill it. And I just think it's gone on way too long, and I think both sides need to really make an agreement in some way. There has to be a compromise. There can't just be one way or one way, because this is what more than half of America wanted. So there has to be some sort of compromise.
Okay, and I do want to remind y'all this is an open discussion, so if y'all want to jump in while someone's talking and just like say your opinion if you don't disagree with something, you know what I mean, you can go, just like don't kill each other, like, I mean, if you don't want to go at each other's necks, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
I prefer not to, but you know, y'all do you. So what party do you support?
More of the conservative, but for this specific scenario, I'm a little bit towards the middle, just like, come on guys, make an agreement.
Yeah, so what party do you stand with?
I'm a Democrat. I'm usually more on the progressive side as Democrats come. Call it progressive, call it democratic, socialist, whatever people on the news like to call it, but more to the left of center.
All right. So, how do you feel about the government right now? Or how do both of y'all feel about the government right now? I mean, one of y'all can go first.
Personally, I felt like once Democrats won the House and Republicans won the Senate, I was hoping there would be kind of like a good mix of ideas and hopefully like, you know, balance of both sides and hopefully some more agreements, but I knew also there could be very well shutdowns and stuff, and sadly that's what this country has gone to so far.
Yeah, it's honestly the way Congress is set up, it kind of makes clash and showdowns and eventual shutdowns over policy disputes a lot more likely. The House of Representatives is a lot more of a democratic in terms of democracy, not the party, but institution than the Senate is, as the House of Representatives is based on population by region, and the Senate gives 2 representatives to every single state, which is fair in ideology, but it does make for different results in elections, and that Democrats won the House and Republicans won the Senate at the same time. And so what that does is it does lead to gridlock. I think that right now the president's decision to resort to a government shutdown in order to secure that funding is an unfortunate and just plain wrong decision on his part as a method to secure that funding. I think that if that's something that he really wants and has the support for in his Republican caucus in the House and the Senate, then he should, you know, work with leaders in the House and Senate and introduce legislation that way. He had the chance to do so during the Republican majority in the House and Senate, and did not do so. Now there is a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, and he has still not done so and has resorted to a shutdown. I could get into my own personal feelings on the matter for quite a long time, I'm sure, but I think just the method of using a shutdown to guarantee funding or to possibly declaring a national emergency to get funding without Congress's approval is an unfortunate use of power.
You said that Trump causing the shutdown, putting the shutdown on, like turning it on, is his problem. But really, if you think about it, if the other side had just passed a bill or like even like agreed to like $3.5 billion, we would never have this.
Well, right, I'm not in the position of saying that Trump himself or Republicans themselves are the sole cause of the shutdown. But the shutdown is being maintained by him alone because Congress in no way on either side has a veto-proof majority in order to end it. And the president himself is saying he needs this $5.7 billion, no less. So even if Republicans in Congress and the more conservative Democrats in the House of Representatives are able to come up with a compromise, say $2.5, $3.5, $4 billion rather than $5.7 billion, or whether they, like the president has mentioned, decide on a steel fence rather than a concrete wall. There's still not a veto-proof majority that of both Republicans and Democrats that would vote for a compromise, and therefore it's really left in the president's hand as to whether or not continue to veto spending bills.
Do you think safety is worth compromising?
Safety of people, I don't think is worth compromising, no.
So if he believes this wall will keep everyone in America safe from drug trafficking in Mexico, for the most part, I mean, it's not going to keep everyone safe, but like, reduce it a lot. Do you think it's worth it?
I myself do not think it's worth it because I don't think it's the most effective way of keeping people safe. I can understand if that is what he truly believes to be the best way of keeping people safe. I can understand him being so adamant on it.
Because that's what he believes. He believes a wall is the best way.
Right, so I can understand that, but I think as far as national crises, and especially those concerning health, there are a lot more larger problems with health and safety in the United States than there is with.
So Matthew, let me ask you real quick. Why do you? I mean, obviously, I see both y'all's point of views. Why do you support the president?
Why do I support the president? Well, I do believe a wall will help solve a lot of issues concerning drug trafficking, legal immigration, violence among borders. I think it'll do a lot. Also, I support him somewhat in this scenario. I don't like how it's been drawn out so much, but I do support him in this scenario because it is what he promised the citizens of America when he got elected, and he's trying to go through with it, and it's what the citizens of America wanted a few years ago.
So how do you, like, if you were the president in his situation right now, what would you do differently, or do you agree with what he's doing?
I would settle for a compromise or cut funding in different areas. There's many areas in the government where they spend way too much money that they could definitely cut and spend in better areas.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, we see your point of view, so why do you not like the president?
As far as the situation goes, I'm not in favor of the president using the tactic of maintaining a government shutdown in order to secure that funding. He is perfectly capable of coming to a reasonable discussion and a compromise with the Democrats in the House and the lenient Republicans in the Senate. Just yesterday, there was meant to be a meeting between the Democratic leaders, Speaker Nancy Pelosi of the House and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of the Senate. And the first thing he asked them was, will you guys be willing to give me the full $5.7 billion of funding while reopening the government to fund that border wall? They said no, and he immediately said that's a waste of time, there's nothing to do here, and walked out. I think it would be much more reasonable for him, regardless of the Democratic position, to stay and try to negotiate some sort of compromise. I mean, if I was in his position, first off, as a president, I wouldn't be pushing for a wall, nor would I be pushing for higher rates of deportations.
Right.
But if I was in his position as a Republican president, as someone with a split government, I would not leave the negotiating table because I didn't get 100% of what I want. I would try to get the most of what I believe is going to help people in that situation.
Why wouldn't you push for higher rates of deportation?
Why wouldn't I? If we're talking about
illegal immigrants being deported.
If we're talking about illegal immigrants, I think that A lot of it is talked about as an issue of policy, especially about fiscal policy, and we don't focus enough on the human stories, on the morality of it. We all have different points of views, and mine just come from my own experiences. I have a lot of friends growing up that are of illegal status. I have many friends that are at risk of deportation, some in this school, some go to different schools, and some of their families are in and out of immigration court every other day. So it's a reality that I've been exposed to, and that I can understand the emotional and physical pain that can come with that. I think our immigration system itself is it's far too complicated, it's far too expensive, and it's far too long of a wait in order to be able to legally migrate to the United States. And I think that has a lot to do with why there is such a high rate of illegal immigration. I think if you want to combat illegal immigration as a problem, then you need to address the immigration system itself and make it so that legal immigration is a much smoother and attainable process for the people that need to and are okay to immigrate to the United States. As far as deporting people, even if they are here illegally, oftentimes they're here 15, 20 years, and they've built lives and families and relationships in their communities, and have started businesses and are doing a lot for their communities and the people in their lives. And so I think it's really just something that tears people apart. And as much as fiscal policy and stuff like that is important, I think that morality isn't something that should be compromised. I don't think that illegal immigrants are nearly as much as a financial burden as they are made out to be. There's a common misconception that illegal immigrants don't pay taxes. It's not true, because the IRS does have tax filing forms that you can use for undocumented status, as the IRS they can't report immigration status to ICE or CBP.
Do you know how often those are filled out?
How often as like
that they file their own taxes like that?
As a specific rate, no, I don't, and I will agree with you that I assume you probably are of the same conclusion that a lot of undocumented immigrants work under the table and don't pay taxes. That is
I assume most of them do.
That's a true conclusion. It is very hard for people to overcome that fear of deportation and take the step.
You know what they do well at getting? Welfare. I see a lot of them come through HB because I work at HB. And all of them are using WIC cards, ID cards, food stamps. I think there's nothing problem with using that as long as you're a legal citizen.
So those are services that my family ourselves relies on.
My family used to rely on them too.
Yeah,
so like I definitely relate.
They're services that we rely on, but you have to provide legal residence information to the government in order to obtain those. I pretty much assume that you're not at work asking people their immigration status, and I assume that you're just making assumptions on people.
Well, when they're buying alcohol to drink while they're building a home, and I ask them for their ID, and they show me an ID from Mexico, or if they just don't show me an ID and drop off the alcohol, I get a little suspicious.
Sure, but that's...
And this is Leander, Texas, so how many miles away from the border is this, and we're having this issue?
I understand the logic. I think that's a morally flawed way of judging people, making those kinds of assumptions. And
I'm not judging them, but I know it's illegal if they're holding an ID card from Mexico. Or, well, I mean, I know it's wrong to judge them if they just like put down the beer. I mean, could be just a 17-year-old trying to get beer, but like...
Well, also, I mean, not necessarily everyone in the United States who is a legal resident has an ID. I'm a full citizen, and I don't have a government ID whatsoever. Okay. So it's...
I think we're getting just a teeny tiny bit off topic, but right here I was just reading, federal workers will hold a rally outside the White House. What are y'all's opinions on that? Is that necessary? Is that something that you think you would do if you were part of that? What would...
I think that if I was someone who, was trying to raise and support a family, if I was someone that is relying on a paycheck to paycheck kind of lifestyle, if I'm someone who has been going a couple of weeks without any kind of pay, and yet not being laid off of work, but continuing to be forced to work by the government, I would be pretty angry. If I'm not able to put food on my kids' tables, if I'm not able to clothe my kids, if I'm not able to pay the rent, if I'm not able to pay the bills, that's not something that you should ever compromise for any kind of political decision, because that's people's livelihoods. That's how they get by. And regardless of whether any government worker voted or did not vote for Trump, I know that they put their livelihoods above any kind of political spar, whether they're in supporting it or not. So I would be pretty angry, and I don't blame them for taking action and protest now.
Yeah, I agree too, because the government has no reason to tamper with people's personal lives and get involved with that in any way unless you break the law or something. And them cutting people's pay, even though they still work for the government, or cutting off their welfare just because they're having a dispute, is just not right, and it should be fixed soon.
Yeah, it says 800,000 federal workers are going without pay amid shutdown. So, final question we have here, I'm going to ask each of you individually. Should they build the wall? Yes. Why or why not?
No, I don't think a wall is any kind of solution. I think mostly it's a political and rhetorical symbol. I can understand the ideology and the want and need among a lot of people for that wall. I can understand where the idea and the fear comes from, but I think there are a lot more effective methods of border security and fixing our immigration system so that there is not so much illegal immigration, and so that we can reduce international crime trafficking and human trafficking and drug trafficking across the border. No, I don't think the wall is an effective solution. If you're trying to address the situation of illegal immigration, many illegal migrants, as they pass through northern Mexico, a lot of the northern states of Mexico are more or less controlled by large cartels rather than the state governments. The state governments have oftentimes lost control either to bribery and corruption of political parties, or just outright violence by cartels, and they've taken control of those states.
They are in control.
Right. And so what they do oftentimes is they know thousands and thousands of people make that travel north and are trying to get across the border. So what they do to exploit those people is they take those people, they round them up, they say, if you want to go across the border, you need to go across with our guy on a raft, and you have to pay, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and you have to go across with us. They may or may not put drugs on you, and then, once you get across alive, or you get shot and killed for, possession of drugs. I think that as far as combating illegal immigration, there are some things such as that where it's not entirely in our control, like the situation in northern Mexico with cartels. That's more of an international crime and transnational crime issue. And as far as constructing a wall with that, cartels are international crime organizations. They have plenty of lines of transportation and communication all throughout the world. So building a wall there does not stop them from going around anywhere else.
So, any questions you have for Andrew before we close off?
It sounded like a lot of things you listed are kind of Mexico's problems that they need to fix, like their states getting overrun and stuff. Like for those people running to the border and trying to get into America, the U.S. I say America because I'm white kid from the U.S., of course. But yeah, it's more of a Mexico issue at that point because their government hasn't solved those issues yet, so people want to escape the country. Well, it might sound morally wrong, but they should just fix it.
Well, I mean, Right, and I would say that the people of Mexico do want to fix it. They've recently elected a new president, a president who has he is pretty far left progressive. He's promised to be this big radical changer of Mexico, and the people have bought into that. So I think the people of Mexico are wanting a change. They're definitely wanting to go away from corruption. But if we're talking about our own domestic policy and we're talking about building a border wall, yes, there are international and transnational problems like that, but the majority of it does rely on us and addressing our broken immigration system. It is a system that I think people on all sides for different reasons would agree it's a broken system that needs fixing.
You know, it's gotten shorter during Trump's presidency, right? The immigration system, it's actually short,
the diversity visa law, or
like just the time in general to immigrate to the U.S.
well, I would hope so, and if it has, then
I hope it'll continue to do so too.
So do you have any questions for him?
It's not necessarily about this, but like, what exactly did you do in like the Texas legislature? Like I worked on a campaign for Texas legislature. John Busey, he ran for state representative here. So just kind of curious about that.
So being in Boise State, I got to go down to the Capitol and be in the legislature room during one of their processions, I guess, that they had. And I got to voice what they talked about so many things I can't really recall. They talked about border patrol and immigration, all that, because we're in Texas, we're a border state. And so as a student, I got to voice my opinions on that, and it was very nerve-wracking, honestly, because there's a bunch of old dudes that have power.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I got to do. I got to voice my personal opinions on topics and weigh my vote.
It's cool.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys very much. We enjoyed both of y'all's opinions on this. This leaves a lot to say. Make sure you leave a like, comment some topic ideas, or give me your ideas and give me your thoughts on all this too. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, and thank you. Till next time, I'll see you later.